What do you think is a narcissist's worst nightmare? Is it being exposed? Is it being ignored? Those are bad, no question. But I'm here to tell you their ultimate terror is something they can't lie about, manipulate, or run from. It's the mirror. It's the calendar. It's the simple, undeniable fact that they are getting older. We're going to talk today about what happens when a narcissist's greatest assets, their looks, their charm, their physical power, their perceived control, begin to rust and decay. This isn't a graceful slide into the golden years. This is a 5-alarm fire in their soul, a desperate, ugly war against reality. And if you're in the blast radius, you better have a bunker. You have to understand, a narcissist's entire world is built on a fantasy of being special, superior, and exempt from the rules. But aging is the great equalizer. It doesn't care how important they think they are. Wrinkles appear, hair thins, energy fades. The body starts to betray them. In their mind, this isn't a natural process. It's a personal attack. It's the universe's ultimate insult. Think of their ego as a magnificent palace they've built. Aging is like termites. You can't see them at first, but they are chewing away at the very foundation. From the outside, it might look okay for a while, but on the inside, the whole structure is getting ready to collapse. See, everything a narcissist does is about control. They control the narrative. They control the room. They control you, but they can't control time, and this triggers a profound panic that manifests in two very predictable ways. First, there's the overcompensation. They might desperately try to look younger in appropriate clothing that screams, "I'm trying too hard." Cosmetic surgery that makes them look like a wax figure that's been left in the sun. Chasing younger partners who are half their age and twice as smart. It's a frantic attempt to prove they've still got it. It's pathetic, really, like watching someone trying to squeeze into jeans from high school. The desperation is palpable. But here's where it gets really ugly. The second way this panic shows up is what I call preemptive rage. They get angry at the world for their own decline. They become bitter, critical, and resentful of anyone who possesses the youth and vitality they're losing. That young coworker who gets promoted. They're inexperienced. That daughter-in-law who looks great at 40. She's had work done. That grandson who's full of energy. He's hyperactive and needs to be medicated. They can't stand to see others thriving while they're declining, so they tear everyone else down to make themselves feel better. It's like watching someone poison the well because they can't drink from it anymore. Now, let's make this a real conversation. I need to hear from you. Have you seen a narcissist in your life start to panic as they got older? Maybe a parent, a boss, a partner. What did you see? Did they get more desperate, more cruel? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. I'm reading these because we need to shine a light on this. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't just vanity. This goes deeper than wrinkles and gray hair. For most people, aging brings wisdom, perspective, maybe even peace. But for a narcissist, every birthday is a funeral. Every mirror is a crime scene. Every photo is evidence of their mortality. They've spent their entire lives believing they were different, special, above the common struggles of ordinary people. But aging doesn't read their RA sum A. It doesn't care about their accomplishments or their self-image. It's the one opponent they can't charm, manipulate, or overpower. And that terrifies them. You see, normal people understand that life is seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. Each one has its own beauty, its own purpose. But narcissists want to live in perpetual spring. They want to be the forever young, forever vital, forever center of attention. When that starts to slip away, they don't gracefully transition to the wisdom and dignity of autumn. No, they rage against the dying of the light like spoiled children who've been told the party's over. The really tragic part, they waste whatever good years they have left fighting a battle they cannot win. Instead of finding meaning in relationships, in legacy, in the simple pleasures of a life well lived, they exhaust themselves trying to recapture what's gone forever. They become prisoners of their own vanity, slaves to their own desperate need to be seen as something they're no longer. And here's the kicker: this panic isn't just about looks. It's about their fuel source, their narcissistic supply. You see, a narcissist needs constant admiration, attention, and validation like a car needs gasoline. Without it, they simply cannot function. But as they age, those traditional sources of supply start to dry up. The younger colleagues stop seeking their advice. The romantic prospects become fewer and farther between. The invitations slow down. The phone calls become less frequent. Suddenly, the spotlight that has followed them their entire lives starts to dim, and they're left standing in the shadows wondering what the hell happened. This is when they become emotional vampires on steroids. When the well starts to run dry, they become desperate. And desperate narcissists are dangerous narcissists. They'll do anything, say anything, hurt anyone to get that supply flowing again. That's what we need to talk about next, the desperate scramble for a fading supply. A narcissist needs attention like we need oxygen. In their youth, it was easy. They were the hot shot at the office, the life of the party, the attractive one everyone noticed. Walk into a room and heads turned, make a joke and everyone laughed, share an opinion and people listened. But what happens when they retire, when the younger generation takes over, when their looks fade, when people stop calling? The supply lines get cut, the audience leaves the theater. The phone stops ringing. This is not a minor inconvenience, it's an existential threat. A world that is not looking at them is a world in which they cease to exist. Think about it this way. If your entire sense of self is built on other people's reactions to you, what happens when those reactions stop coming? If you're only as good as your last compliment, your last moment in the spotlight, your last time someone told you how amazing you are, then losing that attention isn't just disappointing, it's devastating. For most of us, we have an internal sense of worth. We know who we are whether people are watching or not. But narcissists, they're like actors who only exist when the curtain's up and the audience is applauding. When the theater empties out, they don't just feel alone, they feel like they're disappearing. So what do? They adapt, but not in a healthy way. When they can't get high-quality supply, admiration from powerful people, romantic attention from desirable partners, respect from colleagues, they'll settle for low-quality supply. And this is where the game gets really ugly. Low-quality supply is anything that puts them at the center of attention, even if that attention is negative. An argument gives them more focus than silence. A crisis forces people to pay attention to them. Drama keeps them relevant. They would rather be hated and talked about than ignored and irrelevant. You've seen this, haven't you? The aging parent who suddenly can't do anything for themselves. The former boss who shows up at every company event, even though they've been retired for 5 years. The ex who keeps creating emergencies that require your immediate attention. They're not looking for help, they're looking for an audience. They start provoking conflict because conflict is engagement. They'll pick fights over nothing just to see you react. They'll say something outrageous at the dinner table because outrageous gets a response. They'll criticize everything you do because criticism keeps the conversation focused on them. It doesn't matter if you're angry, frustrated, or hurt, at least you're paying attention. They master the art of playing the victim because victims get sympathy and sympathy is attention. Suddenly, everything that goes wrong is a catastrophe. The grocery store was out of their favorite bread, and it's a personal attack. The doctor was 5 minutes late, and it's evidence that no one cares about them anymore. The weather is too hot, too cold, too windy, and somehow it's all happening to make their life miserable. They become professional complainers because complaining keeps them at the center of the conversation. Every phone call becomes a litany of grievances. Every visit turns into a therapy session where they're both the patient and the star. They're not looking for solutions. Solutions would end the conversation. They want to keep you engaged in their suffering. And here's where it gets really manipulative. They become obsessed with the past. They will talk endlessly about their glory days, but this isn't just nostalgia. This is a demand that you admire the person they used to be. They are forcing you to provide supply for a ghost. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The same 10 stories told over and over again. How they were the star of the high school football team. how they could have been a model if they'd wanted to, how they turned down that big opportunity because they were too noble, too family focused, too ahead of their time, how everyone at their old job still talks about them, how they were the best parent, the most devoted spouse, the most talented person in the room. And God forbid you show any boredom or impatience. God forbid you've heard the story before or you try to change the subject. Suddenly you're disrespectful, you're ungrateful. You don't appreciate everything they've done for you. You don't understand how hard their life has been. You're holding hostage by their history. They're not sharing memories, they're demanding worship. They want you to sit there and marvel at their past greatness, to nod along and feed their ego with your amazement. They want you to say, wow, you were incredible, you're still incredible, tell me more. But here's the thing, the stories never change and they never end, because ending the story means losing your attention, and losing your attention means they disappear. So they keep talking, keep demanding, keep pulling you back into their orbit of self-obsession, the most exhausting part. Nothing you give them is ever enough. You listen to the stories, and they need you to react more enthusiastically. You react enthusiastically, and they need you to ask follow-up questions. You ask questions, and they need you to remember every detail for next time. You remember the details, and they need you to bring up the stories yourself to prove you care. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it's never full. Because they're not just asking for your attention, they're asking you to validate their entire existence. They're asking you to agree that they were special, that they mattered, that their life had meaning, and that's not something you can give another person. That has to come from within, but narcissists can't generate that internal validation. They never learned how. So they keep turning to you and to anyone else who will listen, begging for proof that they exist, that they matter, that they're still worth something. And when that well of external validation starts to run dry, they panic. This desperation for supply leads them to weaponize the one thing every aging person has in common, their health. And they will turn their doctor's appointments and prescriptions into a Broadway production where they are the tragic star. For an aging narcissist, a health problem is not a crisis, it's an opportunity. It's a golden ticket to being the center of attention. They don't just have a doctor's appointment, they have a summit with a medical genius who is fascinated by their unique and complex case. Listen to me carefully. They will milk every ache, every pain, every medication, every test result for maximum dramatic effect. That routine colonoscopy becomes a life-threatening ordeal. That minor skin lesion becomes a potential death sentence. That prescription for blood pressure medication becomes evidence of their body's tragic betrayal. They will exaggerate symptoms because exaggerated symptoms get more attention. Suddenly, their back doesn't just hurt. It's excruciating, unbearable, the worst pain the doctor has ever seen. Their headache isn't just annoying, it's debilitating, mysterious, possibly neurological. Their fatigue isn't normal aging, it's chronic, devastating, completely misunderstood by medical science. And here's the really manipulative part. They will doctor shop until they find someone who gives them the diagnosis they want. Not the diagnosis they need, the diagnosis that gets them the most sympathy. They'll go from specialist to specialist, telling each one that the previous doctor didn't understand their case, that they're more complicated than the average patient. They collect ailments like trophies because each one is a new justification for demanding care and attention. They become walking medical encyclopedias, ready to recite their entire health history to anyone who will listen. And trust me, you will listen because they will make sure of it. Now, this is what I call medical gaslighting. They use their health to control everyone around them. Every request you make, every boundary you set is met with a sigh and a hand to the chest. I'd love to help with that, but the doctor said I need to avoid stress. Translation, you are not allowed to disagree with me because disagreeing with me is stressing me out, and stress is bad for my health, so you're literally trying to make me sick. After all I'm going through, you're going to complain about that. Translation, your needs, your feelings Your problems are insignificant compared to my suffering. How dare you burden me with your trivial concerns when I'm fighting for my life? You have to do this for me. I'm too weak. Translation, you are now my servant. My health gives me the right to make demands on your time, your energy, your life. And if you refuse, you're not just being difficult, you're being cruel to a sick person. Every conversation becomes about their health. Every family gathering becomes a medical consultation. Every phone call starts with a detailed report of their symptoms, their medications, their doctor visits. They turn their body into a weapon of mass manipulation. And God help you if you show any impatience with this. God help you if you suggest that maybe, just maybe, some of their problems might not be as serious as they claim. Suddenly, you're heartless. You don't care. You want them to suffer. You're trying to minimize their pain. But here's where it gets really ugly. They will suck their spouse or their children into the role of the 24/7 caregiver. And I'm not talking about genuine caregiving for serious health issues. I'm talking about becoming a slave to their hypochondria, their exaggerated symptoms, their endless demands for attention disguised as medical needs. They need someone to drive them to every appointment, even when they're perfectly capable of driving themselves. They need someone to organize their medications, even when they're mentally sharp enough to do it themselves. They need someone to research their conditions online, to call the doctor's office, to be their advocate, their assistant, their personal medical team. But here's the kicker: no amount of care is ever enough. If you do 99 things for them, they will rage about the one thing you missed. Why? Because it's not about the care, it's about the control. It's about proving they can still make you jump. You bring them soup when they're feeling under the weather. The soup is too hot, too cold, not the right flavor. You take time off work to drive them to a doctor's appointment. You're driving too fast, too slow. You took the wrong route. You research their condition to better understand what they're going through. You're not a doctor. You don't understand. You're making them more anxious. They create a no-win scenario for you. If you sacrifice your life for them, you're a fool, but they'll never tell you that directly. Instead, they'll make sure you know that nothing you do is quite right, quite enough, quite what they need. If you don't sacrifice your life for them, you're a monster, selfish, uncaring, abandoning them in their time of need. The truth is, they don't want to get better. Getting better would mean losing their source of power, their justification for making demands, their excuse for being the center of attention. They want to be sick enough to control you, but not so sick that they actually suffer. They want the benefits of being a victim without the reality of being vulnerable. And they're experts at timing their health crisis. Funny how their chest pains always seem to happen right before you're supposed to go on vacation. Strange how their dizzy spells always occur when you're trying to have a serious conversation about their behavior. Curious how their mysterious symptoms always flare up when you're getting attention for something good in your life. They've turned their own body into a manipulation tool, and they wield it with surgical precision. Every symptom is a guilt trip. Every diagnosis is a demand for sympathy. Every medication is proof of how much they're suffering for everyone else's sake. But while they're weaponizing the present with their health, they are also busy launching a full-scale assault on the past. They become bitter, angry historians, and they will rewrite every chapter of your family's life to make sure they come out the hero. Have you ever tried to talk about the past with an aging narcissist? It's like stepping into an alternate reality. All their mistakes, all their cruelty, all their neglect, it never happened. It's been wiped from the official record. Deleted. Gone. You remember your childhood one way, but according to them, you're completely wrong. You remember being criticized constantly, but they say they were just trying to help you be your best. You remember being ignored when you needed them most, but they claim they were working hard to provide for you. You remember the screaming matches, the cold shoulders, the punishments that went too far, but in their version of history, none of that ever happened. They cannot live with the reality of their failures as a parent, spouse, or professional. To do so would shatter their fragile ego. So they don't just forget the past. They actively erase it and replace it with a more flattering version. They become the editors of their own life story, and guess what? They're always the hero. But here's where it gets really twisted in their revised history. They weren't the problem, you were. They weren't a neglectful parent, you were a difficult child. They weren't a selfish spouse, you were ungrateful and demanding. They didn't fail in their career, they were sabotaged by jealous rivals who couldn't handle their success. Listen to me, this isn't just about making themselves feel better. This is about making you feel crazy. It's the ultimate gaslighting. They are trying to invalidate your entire life experience to protect their own fantasy. You bring up that time they forgot your birthday, and suddenly it becomes about how hard they were working to pay for your birthday parties in previous years. You mention how they never came to your school events, and it transforms into a lecture about how they were sacrificing their own happiness to provide for the family. You try to discuss how their anger affected you, and it becomes your fault for being too sensitive or too emotional. They flip the script so completely that you start questioning your own memory. Did that really happen the way I remember it? Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe they really were doing their best. This is exactly what they want, for you to doubt yourself so completely that you stop challenging their version of events. And they become masters of the if only narrative. If only they hadn't had kids so young, they would have been a star. If only they hadn't married your mother, their life would have been amazing. If only they hadn't had to support the family, they could have pursued their dreams. If only the world had recognized their genius, they'd be a millionaire by now. It's a blame-shifting masterpiece. Every disappointment in their life becomes someone else's fault. Every missed opportunity becomes a sacrifice they made for ungrateful people. Every failure becomes evidence of how the world conspired against them. It allows them to live in a state of perpetual victimhood where nothing is ever their fault. You were the reason they couldn't travel. You were the reason they had to take that job they hated. You were the reason they couldn't follow their dreams. Your needs, your existence, your very presence in their life became the explanation for everything that went wrong. Not their choices, not their decisions, not their behavior. You, and the really sick part, they expect you to feel guilty about this. They want you to apologize for being born, for needing things, for having feelings. They want you to spend your adult life making up for the terrible burden you were to them as a child. But it doesn't stop with you.
Oh no.
Everyone who ever disappointed them, everyone who ever challenged them, everyone who ever held them accountable gets rewritten as the villain in their story. Former friends become jealous backstabbers, ex-spouses become manipulative gold diggers, former bosses become incompetent tyrants who couldn't recognize talent. They collect grievances like some people collect stamps. Every slight, every disappointment, every time someone didn't give them exactly what they wanted becomes evidence of how unfairly they've been treated. They polish these grievances, rehearse them, perfect them until they become gospel truth in their own mind. And they expect you to validate this twisted version of history. They want you to nod along and agree that, yes, everyone else was wrong, everyone else was jealous, everyone else was the problem. They want you to join them in their alternate reality where they were always the victim, never the perpetrator. The most infuriating part, they actually start to believe their own lies. It's not just manipulation anymore. It's self-deception on a massive scale. They've told these stories so many times, refined them so carefully that they become more real to them than what actually happened. You try to have an honest conversation about the past, and you're not just fighting their manipulation, you're fighting their delusion. They genuinely believe that they were the perfect parent who sacrificed everything for you. They honestly think they were the loyal spouse who got taken advantage of. They truly see themselves as the misunderstood genius who never got their due. And here's what makes it so damaging. They don't just rewrite their own history, they rewrite yours too. Your memories become wrong, your feelings become exaggerated, your experiences become misunderstood. They don't just want to change the past, They want to steal it from you entirely. This rewriting of history isn't random. It serves a very specific purpose. It allows them to maintain their grandiose self-image while explaining away all their failures. But this revisionism is fueled by a poison that gets more potent with every passing year regret. A normal person can acknowledge their mistakes, learn from them, and move on. But a narcissist can't process regret inwardly, so they turn it outward as rage, and the primary target of that rage is often those who have what they've lost. You have to get this in your head. Your happiness is a threat to them. Your success is a personal insult. When you get married, buy a house, get a promotion, or have happy kids, you are holding up a mirror to everything they feel they failed at. You think they're proud. You think they're happy for you. Don't be naive. Their secret thought is, why them and not me? I deserve that. They're stealing the life I should have had. See, here's what you need to understand about the aging narcissist's mind. They cannot celebrate your victories because your victories remind them of their defeats. They cannot enjoy your happiness because your happiness highlights their misery. They cannot support your dreams because your dreams coming true makes their unfulfilled dreams feel like failures. Every milestone in your life becomes a personal attack on theirs. You graduate college, and instead of pride, they feel resentment that they never got their degree. You get engaged, and instead of joy, they feel bitter that their own marriage fell apart. You have children, and instead of excitement about grandchildren, they feel envious that you get to experience the love and family connection that has always eluded them. This isn't normal parental concern or even garden variety jealousy. This is something much darker and more destructive. This is a parent who sees their own child as competition. This is a spouse who views their partner's success as their own failure. This is someone who literally cannot stand to see you happy because your happiness is evidence of what they've lost or never had. And they become experts at delivering praise that feels like a punch in the gut. They've mastered the art of the backhanded compliment, the congratulations that leaves you feeling worse than if they'd said nothing at all. That's a beautiful house. It must be nice to have a spouse who makes so much money. Translation, you didn't earn this. You don't deserve this. You're just lucky that someone else is taking care of you. Congratulations on the promotion. I guess they're just handing out titles to anyone these days. Translation, this promotion is meaningless. You're not actually qualified. Standards have clearly dropped since my day. Your kids are so well behaved. I never had time to do that with you because I was working so hard to give you everything. Translation, you're a better parent than I was, but that's only because I sacrificed my parenting to provide for you ungrateful children. Each comment is designed to diminish your accomplishment and subtly remind you that you don't really deserve it. They cannot give you a genuine compliment because genuine praise would mean acknowledging that you've achieved something they haven't, and that's psychologically impossible for them. But it goes beyond snide remarks. They will actively try to sabotage your happiness. They'll start a fight right before your vacation because they can't stand the thought of you enjoying yourself while they're miserable at home. They'll create a drama on your birthday because your special day reminds them that nobody celebrates them anymore. They'll criticize your spouse to your face because your loving relationship is a constant reminder of their own relationship failures. They cannot stand to see you happy because your happiness highlights their own misery. Your contentment is like salt in their wounds. Your peace is like a spotlight on their chaos. Your success is like a megaphone announcing their failures. And here's the really sick part. They will try to drag you down to their level. If they can't be happy, then by God, neither will you. They'll find ways to make you doubt your success, question your relationships, second guess your decisions. They want you to be as miserable as they are because misery loves company, but narcissistic misery demands it. You get a new job and suddenly they're full of warnings about how stressful it will be, how you're probably not ready for that level of responsibility, how the company probably has problems you don't know about yet. You start dating someone new and they immediately point out red flags. Share horror stories about relationships, remind you of how your last relationship ended badly. They disguise this sabotage as concern, but it's not concern, it's envy. They cannot stand to see you moving forward when they feel stuck in the past. They cannot tolerate your optimism when they're drowning in bitterness. They cannot handle your energy when they feel drained and defeated, the most twisted part. They often target your youth specifically. Your energy becomes hyperactivity. Your enthusiasm becomes naivety. Your hope becomes unrealistic expectations. Your dreams become pipe dreams. They take everything that's beautiful about being young and alive and twist it into something negative. They look at your smooth skin and see their wrinkles. They hear your laughter and remember when they used to laugh. They watch you make plans for the future and mourn the future they feel they've lost. But instead of processing these feelings in a healthy way, they turn them into weapons against you. You have energy to go out with friends. They suddenly need you to stay home and take care of them. You're excited about a new opportunity. They remind you of all the ways it could go wrong. You're in love. They share stories about how love never lasts and everyone eventually disappoints you. They become emotional vampires, feeding off your vitality while simultaneously trying to drain it away. They want to be close to your youth and energy, but they also want to destroy it because it reminds them of everything they've lost. And the most heartbreaking part, you might spend years trying to get their approval, their support, their genuine happiness for your success, but it's never coming. It cannot come, because your success is their failure, your happiness is their pain, your youth is their death sentence. This toxic brew of envy, regret, and bitterness inevitably leads to one place: isolation. They are systematically burning every bridge they have, the lonely king in his collapsing kingdom. What's the long-term result of a lifetime of abuse, manipulation, and selfishness? People leave, it's that simple. Friends get tired of it. Spouses divorce them or die. And children create distance to save themselves. But do they ever look in the mirror and ask, was it me? Of course not. In their mind, they have been abandoned. They are the ultimate victim, surrounded by traitors and ingrates who couldn't appreciate what they had when they had it. They sit in their empty houses, in their quiet apartments with their silent phones, and they construct elaborate narratives about how the world has wronged them. They are the misunderstood genius. They are the unappreciated parent. They are the victim of a conspiracy of selfishness and ingratitude. Everyone who left them is ungrateful. Everyone who distanced themselves is selfish. Everyone who stopped calling is heartless. It never occurs to them that maybe, just maybe, people left because staying was toxic. It never crosses their mind that the common denominator in all these broken relationships is them. They end up profoundly alone, but they are never lonely in their own mind. They have their grievances to keep them company. They spend their days replaying old arguments, nursing ancient grudges, and polishing the narrative of their own victimhood. They are the lonely king ranting in an empty throne room, giving speeches to an audience that stopped listening years ago. Their isolation becomes a badge of honor. They wear it like a crown of thorns, proof of how much they've suffered, how much they've been misunderstood. In their twisted logic, being alone doesn't mean they were difficult to love. It means they were too good for this world, too pure for the shallow people around them. They create an echo chamber of one where their version of events is the only version that matters. Without anyone to challenge their delusions, without anyone to hold them accountable, they become even more entrenched in their fantasy world. They become the star, director, and sole audience member of their own one-person show, and they replay the same scenes over and over again. The time their ungrateful child didn't visit them in the hospital. The time their selfish spouse left them for someone else. The time their jealous coworkers sabotaged their career. These stories become their religion, their obsession, their entire reason for existing. But even in their isolation, they still have a few arrows left in their quiver, the last weapons in their arsenal. And they will use them with surgical precision to maintain whatever control they have left. The first weapon is money and inheritance. They will use the will as the ultimate tool of control promising it to one child, threatening to take it away from another. It's their final way to make everyone dance to their tune, their last chance to be the puppet master pulling the strings. You better visit me more often, or you might not like what you see in my will. Your sister calls me every week. She obviously cares more about her family than you do. I'm thinking about leaving everything to charity since my own children can't be bothered with me. They turn their death into a negotiation, their funeral into an auction. They make their love conditional on inheritance, their approval dependent on how much attention you give them. They hold their money over your head like a sword, ready to strike at any moment if you don't perform according to their expectations. But the most devastating weapon in their final arsenal is what I call the final discard. This is when they completely cut off a child, refuse to see grandchildren, or declare that they're done with someone who's been in their life for decades. It's their nuclear option, their last desperate attempt to prove they still have the power to inflict pain. Their thought process is crystal clear. You can't leave me because I am leaving you first. I will have the last word. I will be the one who ends this relationship, not you. I still have the power to hurt you more than you can hurt me. They announce it with great drama and finality. Don't bother coming to my funeral. You are no longer my child. I never want to see you again. They make these pronouncements like a judge delivering a death sentence, with all the gravity and self-importance that they can muster. But here's what they don't understand by the time they resort to the final discard. Most people are actually relieved the relationship was so toxic, so exhausting, so damaging that being cut off feels like a gift rather than a punishment. They think they're delivering the ultimate blow, but they're actually setting their victims free. The really tragic part is that this isolation was completely preventable. All those relationships that ended, they could have been saved with simple things, genuine apologies, real accountability, authentic change. But narcissists would rather be right than be loved. They would rather be alone than be wrong. So they sit in their collapsed kingdoms, surrounded by the ruins of every relationship they've destroyed, every bridge they've burned, every person they've driven away. And they convince themselves that they are noble martyrs rather than the architects of their own destruction. They become living monuments to wasted potential, to love refused, to opportunity squandered. They had chances, so many chances, to choose connection over control, love over being right, humility over pride. But they chose their ego every single time. I know this all sounds bleak, and for the narcissist it is. But this isn't about them. This is about you. It's about recognizing the game so you can finally stop playing. So what's your strategy? How do you get free? You've got to stop waiting for a deathbed apology. You have to stop hoping for a moment of clarity. It is not coming. I'll say it again. It is not coming. You are dealing with a lifelong, deeply ingrained personality structure. It's not going to change. I don't care if they're 70, 80, or 90 years old. I don't care if they're facing their mortality. I don't care if they're sick, lonely, or desperate. The fundamental wiring of their brain, the core of who they are, the way they see the world and their place in it, none of that is going to magically transform because they're getting older. In fact, aging often makes narcissists worse, not better. The desperation, the panic, the loss of control we've been talking about. It intensifies their worst traits. They don't become wise with age, they become more bitter. They don't develop empathy, they become more self-absorbed. They don't learn from their mistakes, they become more convinced that everyone else was wrong. So stop waiting for the Hollywood ending where they suddenly realize how much they've hurt you and beg for your forgiveness. Stop fantasizing about the tearful reconciliation where they finally acknowledge your worth. Stop holding your breath for the moment when they become the parent, spouse, or person you've always needed them to be. Your job is to accept the reality of who they are, not the potential of who you wish they were. Acceptance is not approval. It's not giving up. It's not saying their behavior is okay. It's just acknowledging the facts so you can make sane decisions about your own life. You must allow yourself to grieve the parent or partner you deserved but never had. Grieve the loving relationship, the support, the pride, the unconditional love that should have been yours. You have to mourn that loss. If you don't, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to get water from a dry well. This isn't just sadness we're talking about. This is deep, legitimate grief for something that was stolen from you. Your childhood, your peace of mind, your sense of worth. You lost something real and important, and you need to acknowledge that loss before you can move forward. Cry about it. Be angry about it. Feel sorry for yourself for a while. You deserve to feel sorry for yourself. You got dealt a bad hand, and it's okay to be pissed off about that. But don't live there forever. Grieve it, feel it, and then use that pain as fuel to build something better. Now, let's talk about boundaries. This is not about them. This is about you. This is about protecting your own mental health, your own peace of mind, your own sanity. First, limit contact. Decide how much you can handle and stick to it. Maybe it's one phone call a week. Maybe it's a visit once a month. Maybe it's a card on their birthday and Christmas. Maybe it's no contact at all. There is no right answer except the one that preserves your well-being. Don't let anyone guilt you about this. Don't let them tell you that family is family, or that you'll regret it when they're gone. You know what you'll really regret? Wasting more years of your life being miserable, walking on eggshells, sacrificing your happiness for someone who doesn't appreciate it and never will. Second, limit information. Stop giving them ammunition. They don't need to know about your promotion, your vacation, your problems, your relationship issues, your kids' achievements, or your plans for the weekend. Put them on an information diet. Share nothing that can be used against you later. I know this feels harsh. I know it goes against everything you were taught about family relationships. But you're not dealing with a normal family member. You're dealing with someone who will weaponize your vulnerability against you. Protect yourself. Third, end manipulative conversations. Have a script ready and use it. I'm not going to discuss this with you. I have to go now. We'll have to agree to disagree. Then hang up or walk away. Don't argue. Don't explain. Don't defend yourself. Just end it. They will escalate when you start setting boundaries. They will rage, guilt trip, threaten, play victim, or give you the silent treatment. This is what we call an extinction burst. Their behavior gets worse before it gets better because they're panicking about losing control over you. Don't give in. Don't feel guilty. Don't start explaining yourself or justifying your boundaries. The moment you start negotiating with a terrorist, you've already lost. Hold your line. Stick to your boundaries. Weather the storm. Look, the story of the aging narcissist is a tragedy. It's a life that ends in bitterness and isolation. But you do not have to be the final tragic chapter in their story. You are not responsible for their happiness, and you cannot cure their sickness. You cannot take it personal because it was never about you. Their cruelty, their criticism, their indifference, their manipulation, none of it was about who you are as a person. It was about who they are. It was about their own emptiness, their own insecurity, their own inability to love. You could have been the perfect child, the perfect spouse, the perfect friend, and it wouldn't have mattered. They would have found something wrong with you because finding something wrong with everyone else is how they avoid looking at what's wrong with themselves. Your only job is to save yourself, to protect your own peace, to build a life filled with people who actually see you, love you, and celebrate you. You need to become the star of your own movie, and it's time to write them out of the script. Stop waiting for them to change and start changing your own damn life. Have a good week.